You're about to make a mistake almost every gardener makes, and honestly, it's quietly holding back every tomato, pepper, and leafy green in your garden. Most gardeners, focus on sunlight, watering, and fancy fertilizers, but they completely ignore one simple, forgotten herb that can literally transform your soil and make plants grow faster, stronger, and healthier. If you skip this step, your plants will never reach their full potential, even if you think you're doing everything right. Before we get into the herb, I want to quickly mention something that has completely changed the way I feed my garden, my 4-litre electric composter for kitchen. This little machine turns all my kitchen scraps into ready-to-use fertilizer in just hours. It's odorless, low noise, and it even cleans itself. I use it for everything from coffee grounds to vegetable peelings, and it prevents that mistake every gardener makes of tossing nutrient-rich waste straight into the trash. I'll leave the exact one I use in the description if you want to check it out, but trust me, if you're serious about maximizing your harvest, this tool isn't optional, it's essential. Now let's talk about the herb everyone forgets, borage. Most gardeners dismiss it because it's just a pretty plant with blue flowers. That's a huge mistake. Borage is a powerhouse for soil biology, acting as a living mineral booster. It accumulates trace minerals like potassium, calcium, and magnesium and releases them into your soil where plants can actually use them. I've seen raised beds literally come alive after a few borage plants were introduced. Tomatoes went from limp, struggling vines to bursting with healthy leaves and strong stems in under 3 weeks. The reason most people miss this is that they rely too heavily on chemical fertilizers or generic compost. Those inputs provide nutrients, sure, but they don't encourage the complex microbial interactions that make plants truly resilient. Borage roots secrete compounds that feed beneficial fungi, especially mycorrhizal networks, which improve nutrient uptake. In hydroponic systems, you can even use borage as a companion in containers with liquid compost teas. Its leaves accelerate microbial activity in the water, which translates to better nutrient absorption for your tomatoes and cucumbers. Here's a mistake that keeps coming up in serious gardens. People think adding mulch or compost is enough. You pile it on, water it in, and hope for the best. But without companion plants like borage, much of those nutrients remain locked in the soil, inaccessible to your plants. I've done side-by-side trials in backyard raised beds. One bed had standard compost and mulch. The other bed had the same inputs plus a few borage plants. The difference was astonishing. The borage bed had deeper green leaves, more flower set, and larger, juicier harvests. That's not anecdotal, that's real measurable growth. If you're wondering about ratios and placement, here's what works for me. In a typical 4x8 raised bed, I plant 1 borage plant for every square foot of high-demand crops like tomatoes or peppers. I leave it near the edges so it doesn't shade low-growing plants but still contributes root exudates to the soil. In containers, a single borage plant in a 5-gallon bucket shared with lettuce or spinach can increase yield noticeably in just a month. For hydroponics, chop borage leaves into teas and feed at about 5% concentration of your nutrient solution. Don't overdo it, as too high a concentration can alter pH temporarily. Here's another secret. Borage flowers are irresistible to pollinators. If you've struggled with poor fruit set, planting a few borage plants can double the visits by bees, which is something synthetic fertilizers simply can't do. In one backyard trial, 2 borage plants in a 10x10 plot increased tomatoes set by nearly 30% over a control plot without borage. That's a real tangible increase in harvest, not just a theory. Now, about that kitchen composter I mentioned earlier, it's crucial because, honestly, many gardeners fail at composting. They just toss scraps into a bin, it starts to smell, attracts pests, and, well, you end up abandoning it. That means the nutrients in your kitchen waste never actually make it to the soil. With an electric composter, I can turn every peel, core, and leftover into a concentrated, nutrient-rich fertilizer in just a matter of hours. I top-dress my raised beds with it, use it in container mixes, and even dilute it for foliar feeding. It really prevents that common mistake of losing trace nutrients before they even reach the soil. Some gardeners will ask, "Can I just buy borage fertilizer?" Yes, you could, but you're missing the point. Borage does more than just provide nutrients. It stimulates microbial life, attracts beneficial insects, and improves soil structure over time. Fertilizer packets just can't replicate that. I've tried both approaches, and honestly, nothing beats living borage in combination with good compost inputs. It's like having a natural soil enhancer that keeps on working season after season. Here's a tip most people overlook. Even when borage dies back in late fall, leaving the roots in the soil allows them to continue feeding microbes. You can cut the tops for mulch, add them to your electric composter, and the nutrients cycle right back into the soil over winter. This slow-release effect keeps early spring seedlings from suffering nutrient stress, which is especially important if you're growing high-demand crops like brassicas or nightshades. Now, for gardeners who grow hydroponically or in containers, borage works differently but just as effectively. I've experimented with a 20-gallon container system for mixed greens. Adding borage leaf tea at 5% concentration twice a week improved leaf thickness and color, and the plants were noticeably more resistant to tip burn. For hydroponics, this is a game changer because, nutrient imbalances happen quickly, and borage helps buffer pH and micronutrient availability naturally. So I also want to address a common misconception. You shouldn't mix herbs with vegetables because they compete. That's flat out wrong for borage. Its root exudates don't compete. They enhance uptake of nitrogen and phosphorus while feeding fungi that help nearby plants. I've used it with cucumbers, zucchini, and peppers in the same raised bed, and the harvests were consistently stronger than beds without borage. If you're serious about results, don't just scatter a few seeds and hope for the best. Treat borage as a strategic crop. Plant it intentionally, integrate it with your composting routine, and observe how it changes your soil biology over weeks. Track growth metrics if you want: plant height, leaf color, fruit set. I've seen gardeners go from mediocre harvests to thriving crops simply by respecting this one forgotten herb and pairing it with consistent, quality compost inputs. Here's a final pro tip. You don't need a massive herb patch. Even 2 or 3 well-placed borage plants in a backyard garden or a few leaves in a container garden can trigger noticeable improvements. The goal isn't to dominate your garden with borage, it's to use it as a catalyst for soil life, nutrient cycling, and pollinator attraction. Understanding these principles, soil biology, plant microbe interactions, and strategic companion planting will transform how you garden. You'll stop chasing fertilizer trends and start working with natural processes that consistently produce bigger, healthier, more resilient crops. And pairing that knowledge with a tool like the electric kitchen composter ensures that nothing from your home goes to waste and every bit of nutrient gets recycled back into the garden. If you've learned something new today or are ready to take your harvests to the next level, hit that subscribe button. I post practical, experience-driven gardening techniques every week that aren't fluff or theory. These are methods that actually work in real soil, raised beds, and hydroponic systems. Share this video with a friend who wants bigger, healthier plants, and don't forget to check the description for the composter link so you can start turning your kitchen waste into fertilizer today. Remember, the difference between a good garden and a great one isn't just water and sunlight. It's understanding soil, plant biology, and the overlooked tools and plants that make your garden thrive. Add borage, recycle your nutrients properly, and watch your garden explode with growth.